Hi all, welcome to the channel, welcome to the workshop. I don't actually have anything in the workshop at the minute. The workbench is completely empty, as you can see. What I do have for you is a little bit of a tree building masterclass. I personally don't have it. I'm part of the Plymouth Scale Model Association, and we will actually be in Telford at the IPMS show. So if you're going along that way, please do pop along and say hi. Gav, a fellow member, has kindly allowed me to record his masterclass that he showed to all the other club members. So I have that here for you now. So let's get into it. Let's get building.
Welcome to the workshop. Tools are ready to play. We're gonna build something great. Starting here today. Piece by piece we go now.
Right, guys, trees. I've been asked to do a chat on trees, so here I am. Just to start, I was told this from one of our other members, Dave Green, who got a lot of it from various YouTube things and stuff like that. So I've just added to it, made it a little bit easier and hopefully a bit cheaper, so that instead of you guys having to go and spend money, eBay and stuff like that, you might want to make one yourself. It's not difficult. I've made them, so if I can make it, anyone can make it, really, to be fair. So what we're going to start off with is stuff you need first. Pair of pliers, you're definitely going to need that. Some tin snips, if you've got them, great. Piece of wood. Right now, you either start with a piece of wood or you can just use cardboard. It don't really matter, because what you're going to do a bit later on is just use that to wrap it over, all right? I've tried using my hand before, I've tried using my arm and everything else, and it just doesn't work very well. And then wire. You're definitely going to need wire, because that's the whole point of it. That's what makes all this. So that was bought online, 50 meters, and I think that was 12 quid, which is quite a lot of money. But then you get that, which is rose wire. I got that from Trago Mills. That's 25 meters for 50p. So the only difference that I can see is that, I'll show you this a bit later on, but a little bit of rust comes through there. But you're going to, on the white bit, if you can see, but you're going to paint that anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But 50p for 25 meters is pretty good, really. And all I do to start off with is I hold my finger like that, right? And then eventually unwire it, and you just wrap it round here loosely. If you do it tightly, it won't come off. So you just want to do it loosely, and you'll be left with that, right? So that there is 10 times over that board, which gives you 20 strands, right? So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. What you do when you've done that, as you can see, it's looped at the bottom, it's looped at the top, and you think, right, what am I going to do with that? That's the same thing. What you do is you hold it with your hand on the bottom, and you twist. And that's all you do, is you twist up like that until you roughly want to go where the first branch is going to be, right? So you're left with loops at the bottom, and then you're twisting as you're coming up, which leaves you the loops and the twisted bits. Then you've got to decide where you want your first branches. Model figures are normally, I think you'll agree with me, Roger, about 6 foot, aren't they? Yeah. Based on a 6 foot person, yeah. So this here, is a 1 in 35 model. And if you roughly put that against it, that, and that, that's about an 18-foot tree. All right. Now, if you're going to use obviously smaller ones, I don't know what are smaller than that. What are those little 1 in 76? Yeah. So you don't want a tree that big if you're using something small. So obviously, if you go up to 1 in 24, you've got to start thinking about that, because that's obviously a much bigger figure. much bigger thing. So that's going to have to be bigger. All right. So you've got to think. You can also, and I'll show you this afterwards, you can also make it a bit bigger with the bits that I use, right? You can also use that. That is a thing called sea foam. You can buy it in boxes. It's literally £5 for, I don't know, a box about that big by about that. And I've had that box 10 years and I've got halfway through it. So you could use that as a tree in itself, just by stripping a bit off, using that as the trunk, and then maybe spraying it a little bit, maybe adding a bit of scatter on it, something like that. That would be a perfectly good tree. If you were using one of the little smaller things, if you're against something like that, you want it to be a little bit bigger, maybe, I would suggest. So we've got to this point. This is the point where you've wrapped it round, you've started to twist. That is going to be the start of your roots, right? So what we do is we cut all the bottom off. Each loop is cut, which separates the whole of the strands, right? Then you go up to the top and you cut those loops, which gives you just normal strands, right? They're not joined or anything like that. And as you're going up, you've got to think, right, that's my soldier there. Where do I want the first branch? So I'm thinking maybe the first branch I want is maybe, come on, there. So what I do is I wrap round once and then I start twisting. And you twist like that and then you think, right, where do I want a branch? Where do I want the first branch coming off? Maybe there. And then twist a little bit more. And then you think, right, maybe there should be another branch somewhere up here. So then you just cut that bit off there. And then you cut, say, there and maybe there. And that will give you your first branch. Then if you want another branch here, you just pick 3. You can do as many strands as you want, really. I normally take 2 or 3 normally, because that will give you a decent amount of branches to come off. So I want another one here. So I go round once, I twist as far as I want to come up. I come off one, I go again. I come off another one, and then that one can stay out. And then you just snip that off there, snip that, bend that, and that is the basis of the beginning of your tree. You see that? Right. Once you've done that, you just work your way up. Work your way all the way up until the top. Then you'll come up with something like that. So all that is that. And all I've done is I take 3 or 4 down the bottom, so I've got something that I can actually stab into the scenery. And then what I do is I glue under each of one of these. I normally use like 2-part epoxy or something like that. And then I just dab it on, stick that into the scenery like that, and that will give you the stability, really, is what you want. As it gets bigger and you put more stuff on it, it starts wanting to bend. So that's why, if you are going to buy any of this, I would suggest nothing less than 0.5 of a mil. Otherwise, you're going to start bending. This one here is 0.53 of a mil, which is lovely. This is just normal rose wire that they use just to tidy up their roses and stuff like that. If you use anything less than that, it will just flop. And then you just have this, like, unless you want a wind-swept vista, maybe, I don't know. But so that you need stability in it, and that's why you need to get this twisting correct, and you need to get it tight. And it sounds really difficult, but honestly, if I can do it, anyone can do it. And what I've then found out is a lot of people, like Dave, used to use polyfiller. So once you've got your skeleton, right, He used to use polyfiller. So he'd make up a polyfiller mix and he'd brush it on and he'd leave it to dry, which is great until you want to start bending the things. As soon as you start bending that, the polyfiller will snap off and you're left with like a bit of polyfiller, bare, and it's a pain in the ass. And I didn't know what to do with it, and I've been thinking about it for ages. And then I thought, well, maybe I could use flexible filler. So I use one of these. Just to let you know, I do put blue tack on it, and I stick it to the top of my desk, and I put a squidge of that in it, and I use a coffee stirrer, and I literally hold the bottom bit, and I just spread it on. And I spread it all over. And while it's wet, that's the best time. Now, you can wait till it dry, and then you can put super glue on it and stick your bits on if you want to. But you want to save your super glue and save yourself some money. As it's on, wet, you just get yourself a piece of seafoam, and you just basically cut off a piece of seafoam like that, right? That there looks like a branch, like twigs, like whatever. And then all I do is, when this is covered in filler, I just push that into it like that. Then let it dry, and then that is just pushed into the filler. That's all this is. It's not held on with glue or anything else. So it's saving you a lot of money because you're using super glue all the time. It can get expensive, and if you're using zip kicker, it gets expensive. So I'm trying to cut down as much as I can to make it so that people can afford it. When we were at Avon, do you remember that bloke above us, right in front of us, who was selling trees? He was selling the same trees as what I'm making here. They were costing between 20 and 30 quid for a tree about that big. I've made that tree so literally it's just filler, it's some wire, it's a bit of old wood that I found. You could use cardboard. It's these two bits here that you've probably got in your work kit anyway. That's free, and maybe a couple of rolls of that. And you could probably make a tree. I think I could make that tree for less than £1. Whereas he wanted depending on how big it is. One that big, he was asking for 30 quid, which is a hell of a lot of money. So if you can make that for £1 for your thing, you're laughing. The only problem is with these, I could probably make one of these in about 3 hours, maybe. But you need the drying time. That's the thing. So polyfiller was taking ages, absolute ages. Milliput is another thing. You can use milliput for this. It's expensive and it snaps if you try and bend it. Air dry clay is exactly the same thing, but it crumbles. So you've got to go really careful with that. But also it's another thing, if you move it, it snaps. So what I did with this is, if I want a thicker trunk, you can wrap a little bit of tape around it in the areas that you want it a bit thicker, or you put it on, let it dry, put some more on, let it dry, put some more on, let it dry, and you can actually build out your thing. That cost me £2 from Trago. That cost me £2. I'll show you that in a minute. That is my hairspray. So it's a full tin, by the way, you know what I mean? No. So this is how far we've got at the moment, right? We've got that. Behave yourself, please. No heckling. That looks all right. It looks like a tree. It looks like a tree in the snow. So that's not really good enough. Any paint you've got, anything really, anything brown, anything that's going to give you low lights and highlights is what you want. So I go out in the garden, I hang it upside down and I spray it, and I'll spray it with brown, and then I'll let it dry a little bit and spray it with buff, hit it with a little bit of green, sometimes some silver. If you look at a tree, trees are normally anything but brown. Very rarely you get a brown tree. So it'll be like hints of silver and green in it, and you can hit it with pigments. It will accept pigments, the filler. It'll accept any types of paint because I've tried it. That's what you want on it. You want to get it to a color what you're happy with, right? Once you've done that, this is when this comes in. So a lot of people use white glue. and PVA, the PVA and the water mix. Spray it all over and then put their scatter or whatever it is they want on there. That's great, but it takes ages to dry. And I'm thinking, if you guys want to do it, you ain't going to have time to wait around like that, like I am, because I'm quite anal about it. But so what I did was I just got this extra hold. You get as much as you can. That cost me £1, I think, from Lidl's, something like that. And you spray this area all over, hanging it upside down, right? Once you've sprayed that area, this is what I use. Now I use this because it's not cheap, but you can get a lot out of it. I can easily get probably between 4 and 5 trees out of that bag, which is really good. And there's all different, have a look if you want, there's all different types. That's oak, that is copper beech leaf scatter. You can get loads of different colours from Tremendous. They're great. A lot of people say to me, why don't you use the leaves? And that's because these leaves are completely out of scale. If you come and have a look later, if you put that leaf on that tree, it would just, it would just look ridiculous. It just wouldn't look right. So that is okay if you're using, if you, like I do a lot of 1 in 24, that's fine for 1 in 24. Lovely ivy, you can actually put it on the trees, it's fine. But anything less than 1 in 24 and that isn't really good enough. So I get a piece of paper in front of me, I hold it upside down, I spray it with hairspray, I get my scatter and I literally scatter it and then let it dry for 5 minutes. And then do the same again, and then I'm building up and I'm building up with what I want to put on there. And that is basically it. That is it. It should turn out, he says, like that. That's how it should turn out. That
one of the ones you bought, is it?
Yeah. Yeah, cost me 30 quid. That literally is that, with that on it, my sea foam and like I said, I spray the bow. You can hit it with a bit of buff, you can hit a bit of silver, even silver, you can put some sort of silver on it just to make it come out a little bit more. You can put filters on it. This will take all of it. Whereas I've noticed with polyfiller, if you put a filter on polyfiller, it actually softens it and it starts falling off because it doesn't like whatever's in the filter. Don't like it. So that would be acceptable for that. All right. So that is probably about an 18-foot tree to a 6-foot bloke. If you wanted a smaller one, like a smaller man, you'd want maybe to come down a bit in size because you'd be sort of here for a 6-foot bloke, unless you want a really big tree, which you might do. But this was hit with different colours of this. It's there's some light on it. There's probably a name for it, like lime tree leaf or something. I don't know, but that's the one I wanted. I haven't actually done an autumn one yet, but that'll be my next thing. But that is literally all it is. It sounds and looks a lot harder, but if you can just give it a few hours, playing around with a bit of wire, you got to watch out because I end up with a few finger pricks with the wire and stuff, but that's about it. Just play around with it. You can also, instead of just having, because a lot of trees you get, when you look at it, it hasn't just got one trunk. When you look at them, especially with hazel and stuff like that, they start splitting off. So what you do is you twist. So you get your twist at the bottom first. That's the most important thing. That's your roots. That's your bottom of the bough. And then you can start splitting off. And then you can pull them apart like that. And then that becomes another tree. So then all you do is you twist. Then you bring, say, 3 off. And then that 3 will become a branch. And then you'll have another branch coming off here. And then what you can do is then you can split that again and then make that another thing. So that comes off with branches coming off there, with branches coming off there. And then instead of going, oh, well, how am I going to... Some people use Brillo pads. They pull Brillo pads apart, which is great. You can use horsehair, that rubberized stuff. Pull that apart, use that. That's great. But I find that this is basically a tree in itself. All you're doing is just putting a tree on a tree, really. Like I said, it was about £5 a box.
Did you use litching?
Yeah. I mean, you can basically use whatever you want. You know, is that the stuff that comes in the little boxes? That funny rubbery stuff. I've never used it, but I expect you could use that. So long as you're basically trying to make a piece of wire, a piece of that, look like a tree, and whatever you use, and that literally is. I mean, that's when Dave was telling me about it, I was thinking, oh, I'm never going to be able to do that. But it literally is some twisted wire and a bit of filler and some seafoam, and that's it. And that's probably saved me £29. So if you've got, say, 2 or 3 of them on your diorama, you've saved yourself £90, probably.
There's a book on trees with girls.
It's, as I'm driving, I always have a look at a tree. As I'm driving, obviously, sensible driving. Yeah. Yeah. And that's when, so I've pulled that off because I want to show you that is actually a twig, right? So you can actually add them to it. So not only is it just the metal bits that I've got on here, I'll just get a piece of twig and I'll put it on there and I'll glue it on and I'll think, oh, that'd be good as a dead branch. And then I'll move on there because there'll be some that obviously some of it is dead. So you put it on there. And then with the roots, you're doing exactly the same thing with the roots. You're twisting, you're pulling apart, you're twisting, you put some filler on it. And then when you put that into your diorama, you can then stick it down and then you can put flowers in between it or tufts of grass or whatever you want to do. And that is it. You're more than welcome to come and have a look, lift it up, have a look at it. That is me finished. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for watching. I do hope you found that video useful. If you did, please remember to hit the like button below and give us a massive thumbs up. I'll say a big thank you to Gav for running that. I think he's done an absolute excellent job. Now, I certainly will be using a little bit of his skill, I think. I've got a diorama here, which I think adding a tree will give it a little bit of a lift and obviously add some height to it. If you want to see more of this sort of thing in the workshop, so plastic kits, model building, dioramas, that sort of thing, please do comment below and let me know what you want to see. I'll try and do a few more masterclass type videos like this. I know that the association has got a few bits coming up. I think the next one might be about weathering. So again, if you want to see that, do comment below and I'll make sure that I can try and get that on video and bring it to you guys as well. I also have some plastic kits. So I've got a couple of 1/48 scale aircraft, an F-15 and a Typhoon, I think. Again, if you want to see those, do comment below, let me know. I don't tend to put them on the channel very much, just because a lot of the time it's paint a bit, assemble a bit, paint a bit, assemble a bit, and it can be quite a stop-start process. And obviously videoing that is a little bit of a nightmare, but I will persevere and do that if that is what you want to see. If you want to see what else goes on in the workshop, please do remember to hit the subscribe button and ding the bell for notifications, and then you'll be notified when I release new videos. I will also put links in the description below for the association and things, so you can check out what we do. And obviously, I'll also put links in there for any of the bits that I find that Gav used in his tree building. So do check all those out as well. They might not be the exact links to what he had, but there will certainly be bits that I have found just to make it a little bit easier for you guys. And to be fair, you've probably got a lot of this stuff already in your toolbox and in your workshops. So thank you very much for watching. Until the next time, I'll see you around. Cheers.